Thanks for everyone who's here today. It's good to see you. My name is Imbala Haroni. I'm the marketing director at SQream. And today we're here with David Aka, our SVP EMEA, who will be presenting our webinar, Data Boom or Data Bust, Analytics Challenges and Solutions in the Financial Sector. If you have any questions while we're going through the presentation, feel free to send them through, and we'll pick a few to answer at the end. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Inbal. So by means of introduction, my name is David Aka. I'm managing EMEA for SQream, and our marketing team asked me to run this webinar to share with you some first-hand experience of how SQream is being used through financial services. We currently have a few customers in Europe and in Africa and the Middle East, and a few prospects that we're in late stages of after POC and so on. So to try to discuss some of the challenges and how SQream basically addresses them in financial services. I would like to start by basically saying that most of the financial institutions that we're talking to are somehow in part of a digital transformation. So they're running digital transformation projects now for a while through automation, integration, microservices, release management, CI/CD, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Really, the main drivers behind that is cost reduction and to try to obtain a competitive advantage. And part of this transformation is really the journey from raw data into actionable insight. So they're trying to look at the way they're doing analytics today and maybe to try to use some more modern analytics tools. The main aim is data-driven decision-making or automation, task automation, machine-based decision-making capabilities based on raw data, whether it's internal data sets or external data sets that are brought in for data enrichment processes. And large data sets really must become the norm. And the most interesting thing and that we keep hearing from customers is really something which is called TTTI, total time for insight. So to try to look at from identifying raw data sets into basically turning them into actionable insight, how long that process basically takes. And the amount of data keeps growing in an exponential way. Each year, the amount of data is doubling across the financial sectors. And we believe that 5G will just accelerate that. 5G will create a tsunami of data because it will enable a lot of organizations to collect data about our behavior and about how do we actually go about to do our day-to-day life. For example, the way we drive, smart drives, might be very relevant for car insurance, or our health, wearable devices like a Garmin. So data, if we decided to share that data with insurance or other financial institution, they can maybe tailor-made specific product and offering to us. Or even a smart shopping cart in a supermarket powered by edge computing. 5G will really give the bedrock for edge computing and IoT devices, and the amount of data that will be generated will really gonna push us all into the petascale. And not only the data set will significantly increase as a result of that, but also the need to process them really quickly. So reduction of TTTI is the most important factor in this new petascale era. And data preparation or data engineering for analytics is just not scalable. The need to extract insights fast from massive data raw sets is very much the main requirement we see across the board from financial services. And if we look, for example, at a technology stack of a bank, they have a different part of the system, such as payments, pricing engine, consumer databases, and so on. All of these systems not only generate more and more data, but also relying or consuming more and more data in order to try to do their function in a near real time or as much automated as possible. Configure pricing, decision-making, workflow processes, etc., etc. Similarly, as well, the situation is within the insurance technology stack. Each part of the product stack generates and rely on more and more data, whether it's underwriting, claim, fraud billing, And let's not forget reinsurance and distribution of risk among syndicates. All of these are automated tasks today based on large data sets and data pipes. I think that as the complexity of analytics grow, the requirement to automate and use machine learning really become part of the front of the business. We start to see a shift away from analytics, which is very much dashboarding, batchy, ETL-y, with lacks of speed, scale, granularity, into something which is more of a real-time decision making and machine-driven solutions. So we can see that it's almost a pivotal or some sort of a threshold that most organizations have an old stack and they're all looking into a new stack. Some of it coupling it with moving to the cloud or moving some of the functionality to the cloud. But we can see that the old fashion of BI reporting and dashboards with really old, basing on old ODSs or all the data catalogs is very much the out, and the new, it's all basically the ad hoc base topology. And this is really how the infrastructure or the architecture of most of the organizations in financial sectors basically are building. We can see this, the requirement to ad hoc and near real data is really manifests itself throughout the entire data stack for financial institutions, from infrastructure to asset management to data analytics tools to services and machine learning, etc. What we keep hearing from our prospects and customers in financial sectors when they're trying to do this pivotal change is basically they have quite a lot of problems, whether they are the runtime of queries that take too long time to be able to be in a near real time as data sets go and becoming bigger and bigger. The runtime, execution runtime of queries takes a very long time, or whether data preparation is very, very lengthy and just not scalable. You can't continue chucking more and more resources, more and more people, more and more disks to create more indexes and more pivot table and more cubes, etc. to try to create data, whether they require by far more external data sources in order to try to enrich the internal data sources, and whether the amount of data that they are capable of analyzing within the existing infrastructure. A lot of these problems stem from the underlying architecture that analytics tools basically are using, which is in-memory data architecture. For example, if we look at the more traditional vendors such as Exadata, Teradata, Hadoop, or even the new kids in the blocks such as GCP's BigQuery or AWS Redshift, all of these technology are based on in-memory data architecture. At very high level, in-memory data architecture, what it means that you're taking the data from the data source, from the storage device, you load them into the RAM, and then you let the CPU runs on it. It's fast, it's efficient. However, there's a limitation of how much data you can physically put on a single machine. And as a result of that, all of these vendors, what they do, they're partitioning the data between multiple nodes, in effect having more memory here and here and here. And they compete between themselves on how well they optimize the data on the different nodes and how fast is this layer that knows how to extract the data, cost optimization, etc., etc. And of course, the hardware as well that is required, that they're competing if it is an appliance in the speed of that hardware. Now, this architecture has been around for a very long time. It's very efficient up to a certain size of data sets. And what we see that as soon as you start passing that threshold of the size, then performances start to deteriorate significantly. You go back to the vendors and say, yeah, no problem. Add more execution servers, add another appliance, add more nodes into the architecture, because that's how they scale. You add more and more machine, more and more nodes to it, which at one point become a monstrous environment. And again, it doesn't really guarantee scale, because it is a bit of a merry-goes-around. As soon as the data increases, you hit that threshold again. And as a result of that, most organizations, after a while, deciding that, okay, maybe the strategy is not to keep investing in more and more hardware, but maybe preparing the data for analytics. So you don't really ingesting raw data into your analytics tool. You maybe put it on a data lake, and you do some sort of qualification to the data, ELT, ETL, or that kind of domain expertise, and you will prepare the data to eventually to be mined and to be analyzed. And that's very much the old-fashioned way, because this is a very lengthy process, requires a lot of resources, whether they are HR or even disks for creating another copy of the data, and it takes time. So if the most important thing is TTTI, time to insight, total time for insight, data preparation just creating more and more hinders into that process. So we in SQream, we decided to develop an alternative to in-memory data architecture, and we are utilizing a GPU architecture instead. We developed a database from scratch. We're not relying on any other database. It took us about 8 years to develop that database. About $50 million went into it. And I'm saying all of that to you not to impress you with these numbers, but really to try to give you our alternatives to in-memory database and how is it really relevant for a big data architecture. So we're utilizing GPU architecture. You probably heard a lot about GPU from machine learning or artificial intelligence, or maybe even Bitcoin mining. But I would like to draw your attention to interesting few things about GPU architecture, which is really relevant for big data or massive data architecture. So the first thing, that on a small card, and for example, what you see here in front of you is the NVIDIA V100. There are thousands of computing cores. And this small NVIDIA card, which is probably smaller than the credit card in your pocket, you have 5,000 cores. Put 4 cards on a single machine, you have massive parallel, 20,000 cores, the equivalent of an entire data center, or probably a small mainframe, on a single machine. And the single machine, the single node here is really important because you don't need to start transforming the data between multiple nodes with data latency, and you don't need to manage the data transfer on the way you fetch the data and so on. So you have massive parallel on a single machine. That's one element of it. The second element, which is really interesting about a GPU architecture, that you're working with data streams. So you're loading data streams from storage devices directly into the GPU cores. All you have in memory is a pointer to that data stream. So you don't really need to load your data before you start processing it. I know there's some other GPU databases that are loading it to memory and having the same sort of hinder of in-memory data architecture, but we in SQream bypass that completely by developing the whole database from scratch based on GPU architecture. And of course, we added some additional elements to the mix, such as we utilizing the GPU to do ingestion. So we talk about really rapid data transfer rate, about 3 terabytes per hour per GPU. Again, put 4 GPUs, you have 12 terabytes per hour, which is phenomenal. Or we executing some really complex tasks, like for example, SQL joins at the GPU level, and we walk away completely from a caching problem. I'll talk about it in a bit in a minute. So in a way, what we've done to a big data industry is very much what the jet engines did to the aviation industry here. Today, the way all the in-memory data architecture is scaling up is basically like a propeller engine that you can put another propeller engine, another propeller engine, another propeller engine in order to create some sort of scalability to a plane. But still, there's a limitation of how many propeller engine you can put on a plane and need to take off and lift off. And if you're trying to fly between London to Sydney, you probably need to stop 10, 15 times on the way just to fuel, while a jet engine will do it really fast and we could do it in one single journey. So we are very much believing that we're disturbing the market in very much the way a jet engine disturbed the market for the aviation as it is. And if you look at our really where the areas where we add value to our customers are more or less in 4 groups. The first part is about analyzing data much faster. The ability to run this core is really, really fast. For example, I'll talk later on about IFRS, cash flow calculation, which is something that takes a very long time in a lot of financial institutions today. And I will show you how we managed to take a process that took 6 hours and bring it down to about 20 minutes. And the way we really do that, if you have 4 GPU cards, you have 20,000 cores, we're taking a very large complex SQL statement, we are breaking it down in our technology, completely transparent to the user, to 20,000 pieces. We let all of them run in parallel, and then we do the rendezvous. This is how we can take 6 hours and bring it down to 20 minutes. Of course, there's more into it, but we're just one pillar. The second part is the ability to analyze by far more bigger data sets. So we have a big rating agency, credit rating agency, which is one of our customers, and we managed to help them to increase the window of analytics of running such a query from 18 months, that was the bottleneck of in-memory data architecture for the product that they used, into 10 years, 120 months. So ability to extract by far more insight, ability to do by far better cross analyzing the data in a retro fashion and so on. The third area that I alluded a bit before is about ability to bring different data sources and join them together. So we run for a big bank in the UK, the fraud detection for a credit card. I'm going to show that a bit later on. And we took 36 different data sources. They wanted to enrich for fraud detection, 36 different data sources, and to put it on a single SQL query, something that they tried to run on Hive before and took them 3.5 weeks. We managed to bring it down to an hour and 20 minutes. So we don't do the SQL join in memory. We're doing it at the GPU level, and therefore there's no really limitation of how many SQL joins you can put into as a part of a statement, or how big are the data how big are the data sets. It is very much of an issue of how much power do you have, and if you need more power, you want to run more to join more sources into the same statement, just add more GPU into the mix. And of course, really the fourth area where we really bring value, we're very much participating in this democratization of data. Well, democratization of data today is very much around just reporting in BI, and if it's a Power BI users or machine learning or data scientists, oh, that's too complicated because you need to prepare the data for it. This is basically what SQream brings to the picture. You can just point into a data source, and then SQream automatically will ingest that at a really, really fast pace, and then it is ready for SQL, and you can start querying the data in near real time using SQL language. So I just mentioned that SQream is an SQL tool. I mean, SQL is an SQL database. We don't really have an interface to SQL. It is a native SQL database. And as such a SQL database, first of all, if you know SQL in your organization, you know how to use SQream. You don't need to go through a lengthy learning curve. The second thing is that the interoperability and interconnectivity is just like any other SQL product. So if you have any kind of, for example, downstream to SQream, any kind of data sources or any kind of ETL tools, automatically you can connect them into SQream without even the products or the data sources know that, you know, it's not Exadata or not Hadoop or anything like that, but it's SQream, it's as simple as that. And upstream to us, any kind of data consumption layer, whether it's visualizers or data dashboards or machine learning or artificial intelligence, all of them can be basically be connected to SQream seamlessly. And of course, SQream can run on-premise and in the cloud, actually on the edge as well. So we are not really a hybrid technology, we're a tri-bridge technology. This is really out of the box for almost any kind of scenarios. So far in this presentation, what I tried to show you, first of all, what we hear from the market and where is the problem. Data sets are increasing significantly in size, and there is a need to try to move away from batch-oriented manual processes to something which is almost near real-time and automated and machine-driven. So I would like to focus the next 20 minutes on basically sharing with you what is my team currently doing across Europe to big financial institutions, whether they are retail banks or the insurance company, equity banks, etc., etc. And I chose 4 main areas. 3 of them is BAU, business as usual, and I'll just try to zoom in for around sales and marketing, because it's a big analytics space in financial institutions, how to deal with the customers and how to attract other customers and how to communicate to customers. The second area, which is really important, is around risk management, regardless if you're a bank or if you're an insurance company. Risk management, liquidity, regulation, all of this basically comes under the same umbrella. I created this banner, called it Operation Management, and I tried to put a few things underneath that. And I created as well a fourth area that I would like to zoom in with you guys. It's around innovation and something new, and it's predominantly around blockchain and how we connecting existing systems such as lending or payment through the blockchains to external devices, whether the edge, whether it is IoT devices and so on. So in each of these areas, I will explain roughly different scenarios that we're running, and then I will zoom in into a specific scenario, and I will actually show you a bit more about the implementation. I just want to remind everyone that if there's any questions, please send them through the chat, and in the end of discussing the use cases, I will basically take some questions and answer them. So for the first area that I would like to basically dive in is sales and marketing. And this is very much the ability to micro-segment customers' behavior, either internally with the information we have over them, or to purchase external data sources and try to merge, try to combine what we currently know about the customers and what we basically can extract from external data sources. This cross-reference, it's very much important here, and it happens today, but more and more the requirement is try to do that on a micro-segmentation. So, for example, segmentation of prospects based on their social media use or based on other lists that they are participating in them, or try to determine the best way to communicate with a prospect to try to get his attention. This whole omni-channel approach by basically analyzing activities of prospects and interaction, etc., etc. And then once we know who we want to communicate with them and we know what is the best channel to communicate it with them, is how do we personalize that specific message that will attract them, that will tell them, oh, these guys actually have something that is relevant for me. For example, if you're a Garmin user and you give your consent for your data to be shared, and you're a health or you're a health insurance provider, you can basically try to target Garmin users based on the number of times they went to a gym in average over and offer a specific cover for them or a specific incentive to them, and maybe as well give them a free pass to a gym or anything. We can see that more and more happening today. So that's on the marketing side. There are some more use cases, but predominantly they are about identifying the targets, identifying the best communication channels, and then personalize the messages for them. The second area around sales is very much going around to try to understand the customer behavior internally, about how monitor its activity and try to come up with some insights, whether it's about pricing, to do dynamic pricing and personalized pricing. So if you don't really earn a lot of money, maybe we not really will be very attractive and we will not charge a lot of money for you to try to retain you. But if you're a bit more wealthy customers, we will provide you a bit more and we'll be able to charge a bit more. Or try to identify high value or most profitable customers and maybe as well adjust liquidity and other risk factors as a result of that. In insurance, the whole area of pricing and underwriting based on customers' behavior and really across the board, and this is the use case that I will zoom into in a second, is about cross-selling. How do you bundle product and marketing based on customers' behavior? So there is this term in marketing which is called always-on marketing that all the banks or financial institutions, insurance company, etc., trying to move to. And they basically, in the always-on marketing, the on is to be on the customer, to know exactly what the customer did and to react immediately for that. So no more monthly dashboards or monthly reports and segmentation at a very high level, but as soon as someone did something, you can immediately respond to that. For example, if a customer received a large cash inflow, automatically we can trigger a process that will offer him some investment opportunities. Or if we see that the customer is still every time of the month is struggling with liquidity, we can automatically offer him some lending products. And in order to do that, most customers today are segmenting on a very generic demographics, age, geographics, rather than really go into to see the exact behavior or the exact characteristic that are really important for the customer, that are very unique to that customer, and that you can as well bring external data sources to try to understand that particular segmentation. So really, we're helping organizations, I'll show you in a minute, one of these use cases to move away from really large, very generic segmentation into something which is almost pinpoint to a very few customers. And then if you think about how do you communicate the message and what the message is, you have higher retention rates, and you can generate better loyalty as a result of that. And this is exactly the use case that we did for one of really leading bank in Europe. Right now, they used Oracle Exadata, that where they have millions of customers record and billions and billions and billions of transactions, and many other data, external data sources that they bought from social media, from information that exists in the ether and so on. And we built for them an ODS, we built for them a specific data store to be able to drill down on raw data, to find these moment-centric moments, and to translate them, to trigger real-time offers, to try to capture that, to improve cross-sell and conversion rates, and more importantly, to create that, to increase that trust and loyalty. If you manage to, at exactly the moment something happens, to send a customer a message that basically encapsulates that you understand exactly the moment and how you can help him, you have by far higher success rates to retain him and to develop trust, because it feels that you know what he's going through. And this is basically how you increase your competitive advantage. And this whole area of target and dynamic pricing is really helping customers to reduce, a big organization to reduce churn and creating better and happier customers. So this is a massive area that we involve in few projects right now, and everyone's trying to understand micro-segmentation in order to try to cross-sell different platforms and to react to them in real time. And you can see here the walk away from ETL and batch, and why TTTI is so important, because the ability to create a moment-centric is really important. The second area that I want to try to address, that we're doing some projects right now, is about risk management, whether it's identity fraud detection, liquidity risks, so to assess the ability to meet cash flow and collateral needs, both in a normal and stress condition, really important right now after COVID with the financial situation that we have, without having a negative impact on the day-to-day operation or overall financial positioning. Whether it's a credit risks, so knowing your customer a bit better, understanding the customer segmentation, as I just mentioned, or monitoring those relationships. Like any other businesses, banks want to keep their existing customers, so monitoring a relationship is cheaper than trying to acquire new customers. All of this of sentiment analysis or predictive analytics is very much the use case here. If you look at insurance, so insurance fraud detection, and it's sort of anomaly detection, or creating performance indicators, or setting up baselines and threshold. All of these are something that derives from analytics. And I would like to zoom in to a card fraud detection, which is another big leading UK bank project that we've done for them. We very much try to help them to analyze long-term historical data sets for fraud detection, to try to increase the window of analytics for them, again, from very short, or from a year to 2 years, to a much larger data sets, and to enable them to bring some external data sources into the mix to try to identify fraudulent transactions or behavior, and to run some really complicated window function that takes very, very long time. We deployed SQream as part of Hadoop. I didn't really mention that before. SQream could be deployed to any kind of environment, if it's Exadata, Hadoop, Snowflake, GCP, AWS, Redshift, whatever environment you're currently using. SQream could be deployed alongside of it and make those environments sweat a bit more. So we offloaded some of the data from Hadoop and Spark, and we worked under the same basically framework. And the example that I gave before for the fraud detection, they actually had 36 different data sources. They were sitting on 78 different Hadoop nodes. And we ingested 4 GPU, 12 terabytes per hour. We ingested large data streams directly into a SQream ODS. We deployed SQream as an ODS for that particular use cases. And we started training machine learning with really large data sets. data sets that today it took them 3.5 weeks to run these 36 SQL joins of different data sets, and we managed to bring it down to 1 hour and 20 minutes, and helping them to get faster time to insight, or the TTTI. So as I mentioned, from 3 weeks to 1 hour and 20 minutes, we increased the accuracy of the models, and we got them a better prediction and classification in real time. The third area I would like to discuss is around operation management, whether it's a consolidation of accounts when closing the books, where it's OFSA acceleration. We have so many organizations that need OFSA acceleration. OFSA is an Oracle, based on Oracle Exadata reporting tools, and we have almost a solution out of the box that knows how you can offset a really large complex calculation from the Exadata machine into SQream, running all this calculation, enrich the data, and ingest the data back into Exadata for all the reporting, all the dashboards. We don't really touch that, but we offload some of the very complex queries, for example, IFRS cash flow or any kind of profitability calculation, and pushing it back. This is very much around the Oracle ecosystem, but it's very popular. Almost every bank or insurance company that they have Oracle, they're the first thing that they're basically trying to talk to us about that. But we're helping other things like branch location strategies. So to try to understand, based on a lot of information that's available on the high street of specific areas, of the amount of traffic, the amount of foot in specific areas, and so on. All of this information that eventually goes into some sort of analytics. Improving regulation for money laundering and know your customers for interbanking as well. It's quite a large area of analytics, but I really would like to try to zoom in into this IFRS, because we can, again, this is a generic challenge that we see across the board for insurance companies and for banks. The ability to basically to try to analyze multiple data sources here and to try to bring all of these queries. It's usually IFRS cash flow statement, for example, an insurance company is a recursive calculation that needs to take 120 years forward. You need to run this calculation on a really large data set on 3 different areas or 4 different areas in the business in order to try to create a schedule or to try to create a disclosure. And we'll show you in a minute that for a very big insurance company, we managed to take it down from 6 hours to about 20 minutes. We managed to bring data from multiple data sources, whether they are policies, commission, claims, reinsurance, and extracted what ran before that on a SAP for HANA environment with a very long query, almost 6 hours. We managed to replicate the calculation and aggregation from within SQream. This will be an augmentation rather than offloading. And we managed almost in 20 minutes to get them a GL posting, IFRS disclosures, and all the reporting that they basically require. So if you have any IFRS problem within your organization, talk to us. This is an area we can significantly accelerate and help you to deal with that on a weekly, monthly, whenever the time interval that is basically required from you to do. So I discussed the last 3 areas of scenarios where more or less of business as usual, BAU. I would like in the last part of this presentation to talk a bit about innovation and about how we enable financial institutions to connect to all the fintech, especially happen here in London where I sit, and how to basically, especially blockchain, how to connect with it and extend offering. For example, the one that I will try to use is just-in-time landing, and I want to draw this attention for you. So let's say you're a manufacturer, and once in a while you're getting really big orders, and the ERP system knows that you might not have enough raw material and you don't have enough working capital to buy your raw material. So by connecting the ERP system into the bank's lending protocol or layer, it can very quickly identify that capital would be required here, and probably the customers will start shopping around. And based on contracts that you may have with the customer, You can automatically fire a decision making if whether to lend, if the risk is acceptable or not, what will be the rate that you will basically charge, and get the whole contract signed. It could be automated contracting, for example, on a blockchain, and then automatically inject the money into that customer's bank account, in order that the customer, if not even, would feel that there is even a lack of working capital in order to try to fulfill that order. Or you can connect to an IoT of the manufacturing devices, and if you feels that, or if you indicated that machine is down, or there's a problem, maintenance problem with one machine, and I probably again don't have enough working capital to replace it or to maintain it, automatically that can be triggered, etc., etc. So this is something that we see more accurate risk predictions. Lending gaps for SMEs continue to widen. It's very much the cost of doing that and the risk of the customers basically shopping around, because although they bank with you, they don't going through you're not the only vendor they can go to other vendors as well. So really relying on joint data, collecting from all sources, whether it's ERP or whether it's the manufacturing assembly line, and try to factor so many different parameters from so many different data sources and artificial intelligence that can basically make lending decisions within seconds and trigger workflows to automatically pay for into customers' account. So this is something that we basically see happening more and more. There's a request to try to look into and do some POCs and proof of values and experimenting with technologies, and basically put SQream as the engine that manage this whole process, because the ability to drill down into data at a really large data set and find cross references and other extraction of insights in a real time. So I just want to, last thing to say that very much Gartner is as well identified SQream as the leading architecture for massive data stores and the ability to enhance existing data warehouses and to speed up everything to do with TTTI, whether it's ingestion of data, whether it's aggregation, whether it's ingesting it to the other sources or consume it directly from SQream. So Gartner also endorsed SQream when it came to that, as well as a variety of customers. So at this point, I see that we have a few questions. So Inbal, can you help me with that?
Yeah. So the first question is from Jerome. He's asking, he said, we mentioned OFSA acceleration. We have Exadata and some of the daily reports run too long. How can you help with that?
I'm not surprised. So OFSA, in the beginning in the SQream, we looked at it as just like, okay, it's just another query that we need to run. But as we gone around so many different financial institutions, it's one of the first use cases that everyone is asking us about, because it costs a lot of money to try to address it and accelerate it in any other options. We saw some customers who even try to offload data from Exadata into Hadoop and to try to solve that, and just basically did not get the right time response that they were after. What we did in SQream, we developed almost an end-to-end solution with ability to extract data from Exadata on really, we multi-threading it over GPU, and the ability to process the data at a really, really large pace, and then to ingest it back into Exadata. So anyone who have any kind of OFSA challenges, please talk to us. We can almost in 6 weeks get you an end-to-end solution that will really fit what you're trying to do.
Okay, we have a question from Eric. He's asking whether SQream is a cloud or on-premise solution.
Both. So SQream is built on a Docker container with Kubernetes as an orchestration layer. We have a full support for on-premise. We can deploy SQream on-premise. You can deploy SQream in the cloud, and you can deploy SQream at the edge. So we have SQream can run on GPU that runs on edge computing from NVIDIA. And it's very simple to try to create a data pipe that will include all of the three together Think about once 5G will start to become so dominant in the next 18 months in our lives, all IoT devices or other edge computing capabilities, rather than transferring really large data sets back to the data like maybe that sits in the cloud or maybe to the master data that sits on premise, you'll be able just to send a summary of that. And of course, we can run federated queries. So if your master data sits on premise and some of your external data sources sits in the cloud, we can combine it all together. SQream is really truly the only product that doesn't require you to choose either on premise or in the cloud. Everyone is interfaced to the cloud, but the majority of the data still sits on premise. We're really helping customers in their journey from on premise to the cloud and helping them to lift and shift pipe by pipe rather than a big bang approach, a piecemeal approach of basically moving more and more data sources from on-premise to the cloud when it makes sense. I know a lot of customers did the reverse, took it back from the cloud and put it on-premise because of cost, because of performance, because of security, because of a lot of other things. We're really truly giving them the full flexibility on-premise, cloud, and at the edge. Any more?
Yeah, we have a couple more. We have a question from Betty who wants to know if there's a limitation of data set size on SQream.
Very good question. No, actually we don't. What we did, we decoupled computing from storage. So unlike in memory data architecture, when the computing and memory and storage is all bundled together, and therefore the only way to scale is to put another machine, in SQream, if you want to scale up, you just add another GPU or GPU cluster if you're on the cloud, or if you want to scale out, you just add another share or another device into your network share. So there is no limitation of data size. We have some customers for example, a big telco in South Korea that we are running queries on hundreds of petabytes of data. There's absolutely no limitation. It's just a question of computing power. And if you want to, if the data set increases, just add another GPU card, which is a commodity on Amazon. It's like $4 an hour for that to basically to run. So there's no limitation. This is the beauty about SQream. We don't scale by adding more machine. We scale by using more and more GPU cores or more GPU cards.
Okay. Mar asked if whether he can SQream be connected to something like TensorFlow.
Yes, SQream is a SQL database. So anything that is available to connect to in TensorFlow, like JDBC, ODBC, and of course SQL Alchemy, which is probably the most popular and most way that most organizations connecting SQream into TensorFlow or H2O or any other machine learning that you may use.
And one last question from Vadim. Can I evaluate SQream in my own environment?
Yes, you can. We are running free of charge POCs workshops. So if anyone basically wants to evaluate SQream in their own environment, please feel free to drop me a line. You can see my email address, davida@sqream.com, or contact us through our website. We'll be very happy to discuss with you the scenarios and how we can support you in doing that. It wouldn't cost you much. It wouldn't cost you money at all. It will just cost you a bit of time of your team to basically run for evaluation. And we can help you as well with methodology and out-of-the-box scenarios if you want. It's very straightforward. It's not an open source. We don't just give you to play with it, but we are very responsive. Anyone who wants to try SQream for themselves with their own data, either it's on-premise or in the cloud, we're very much will enable that.
That was our last question. I just want to remind everybody, if you sent us a question and we didn't get to it here, you can email us. You see David's email address on the screen, david@sqream.com, or alternatively, we're also going to be responding to people who sent questions through the registration email you used for the webinar. And of course, we hope to see you all at our next webinar.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.